Well, hello and welcome. I'm Miss Heard with Miss Heard Song Lyrics Podcast. We're doing Season 4, Episode 189, and I'm doing my first ever Roberta Flack Miss Heard Song Lyric. So, the Miss Heard Song Lyric is, strumming my face with his fingers. The correct lyrics is, strumming my pain with his fingers. The way she says the p almost sounds like she's saying a f. So I can hear the face. And, you know, I guess you can strum a face, apparently. So, had to do this Roberta Flack Miss Heard Song Lyric because a good friend of mine recently sang this at another good friend's 50th birthday party this weekend. It was #1 song the week of my friend's birth in April of '73. So that's why they had this. It was really smart. A list of all the songs, top 100 of the week of his birth. And this was #1. So another friend sang. And I'm like, I got to do a Miss Heard Song Lyric on this. There's got to be. And of course, strumming my face with his fingers is a Miss Heard Song Lyric. Now, my generation is more attached to the Lauryn Hill cover version from the early 90s with the Fugees. Now, you know, one time, two times. I actually also sing that in karaoke, and it's a great song to sing and people love it. But for today, I want to touch on the original version or original cover, because it's still a cover, with Roberta Flack. So let's begin. So Killing Me Softly is a song composed by Charles Fox and lyrics by a Norman Gimbel. Remember those two names. And the lyrics were written in collaboration with Lori Lieberman after she was inspired by a Don McLean performance back in late 1971. Fast track 2 years later in '73, it became a #1 hit in the US, Australia, and Canada for Miss Roberta Flack. So she covered this, and I'll tell you the story of how she came about this song, and also reached #6 in the UK singles charts. And then fast track in 1993, later on, we'll hear about the Fugees. So the origin of the song. So aspiring musician Lori Lieberman was a mere 19 years old in 1971 when she was introduced to veteran songwriter Norman Gimbel and composer Charles Fox. The two men decided to sign her to a management contract in which they would write her songs, manage a career, and by the way, take 20% of her earnings. Yikes. And that was before you could do your own self-promotion on social media, way back when. So you had to be, helped by people like this or get a recording deal. So the three shared common Jewish heritage, and apparently they were all Scorpios, so that made them feel like, this is kismet, we need to work together. And they began to pull songwriting ideas. Okay, so now we're a group putting songs together. Now, in the backstory, Gimbel also had an affair with this young 19-year-old Lieberman, even though he was 24 years older and married, and they kept the affair secret for years now. Of course, until now we know about it. So he could have been her dad's age. Now, the song was conceived was in November of 1971. Lieberman, then 20, went out with her friend Michelle Willens to see a Don McLean performance at the Troubadour nightclub in Los Angeles. You know, Miss American Pie, drove my Chevy to the levee, but the levee was dry. That Don McLean, his hit song American Pie. So that hit song was rising in the charts, and apparently Lieberman was so affected strongly by his singing that night. And he actually, I heard it wrong. I thought it was when he sang American Pie. He actually sang another song, Empty Chairs. When she heard him at the Troubadour in LA in November 1973 sing Empty Chairs, that's when she started to write crazy notes on her paper napkin while he was performing. This is the beginning of the song, Killing Me Softly, with his song. Her friend Willens confirms that Lieberman was, quote-unquote, scribbling notes on a napkin as soon as McLean began singing the song. And then after the concert, Lieberman phoned Gimbel, okay, remember the other team that she's working with, to read him her napkin notes and share her experience of a singer reaching deep inside her world with his song. Lieberman's description reminded Gimbel of a song title that was already in his idea notebook titled Killing Us Softly with Some Blues, okay? And Gimbel expanded on Lieberman's notes, fleshing them out into song lyrics. Gimbel said in 1973 that her conversation fed me, inspired me, gave me some language and choice words. Excuse me. Ooh, that's what happens when you do this live. Gimbel passed these lyrics to Fox, who set them to music. Okay, so now here we go. We're making a song together. Lieberman recorded the song in late 1971 and released it as a single the next year in 1972. It was produced by Gimbel and Fox, because remember, they're taking 20% of her earnings. Now, unfortunately for her, her version, even though it was the original version, did not chart anywhere. So then Lieberman promoted the album by touring, and she was always introducing the song as Killing Me Softly and describing, hey, this came up because I remember I was at a Don McLean performance and this inspired me to write the song. Gimbel and Fox, now remember this, Gimbel and Fox even wrote out, they say, this introduction of this song so that she could deliver it consistently at each performance. They said, yes, this is a story, say it before you perform it so it's a great, consistent song and gives some color to how the song came about. Then in 1973, her first appearance on national television, Lieberman described the same story on the Mike Douglas Show, which was a big show back then. I remember as a young kid watching it after performing the song, just like how the three of them agreed upon. And then when Lieberman toured through Canada in 1974 to promote her second album, Billboard magazine carried a public relations piece from Capitol Records about the three-way song-producing team of Lieberman, Gimbel, Fox, including the description of the Don McLean performance inspiring the song Killing Me Softly. Okay, we're all in, all agreement in this. And Gimbel was quoted saying that he relied on Lieberman to inspire songwriting creativity since he has passed the most creative days of his youth. He said, quote unquote, now I need a reason to write, and Lori is one of the best reasons a lyric writer could have. Okay, so it's all said, quoted, 1971 to 3. And when Don McLean heard about it in 1973, that he was surprised to find out that the song described his singing. He said, I'm absolutely amazed. I've heard both Lori's and Roberta's version, and I must say I'm very humbled about the whole thing. You can't help feel the way about a song written and performed as well as this one. So he was very humbled that his song Empty Chairs, when he sang it at the Troubadour in late 71, made, inspiration for Lieberman and the rest of the crew to create this song. Now let's start talking about the shade. Now, I've shared with you, Gimbel and Fox were all in agreement. They even wrote her script of saying, say the story. It's a great story to tell. So after decades of confirming Lieberman's contribution, now Fox and Gimbel changed their story about the song's origin to downplay her role. I wonder if there was some finance available to it. Gimbel even threatened McLean, get this, with a lawsuit in 2008 demanding he remove from his website a assertion that McLean was the inspiration for Killing Me Softly, but McLean responded by showing Gimbel the latter's own words confirming the inspiration, published in 73. Idiots. So this is what the dispute. So in the 1970s, both Gimbel and Fox were in agreement with Lieberman about the song's origin at a McLean concert. Sean Derrick, who worked for Gimbel and Fox, was an assistant in the 1970s, and he also confirmed that the two men would tell the McLean origin story all the time. So why the change? It looks like the change happened with Gimbel and Fox when their stories around 1997. So up until then, they were all like, oh yeah, Lori's part of it, Lieberman, and 97 on. So when I did some searching, what happened in 97? Well, it looks like in 1997, Lieberman had long severed her ties to Gimbel, but she reconnected with Fox, who attended a concert of hers. They said here, Lieberman was interviewed by the New York Times about her recent songwriting work. In this interview, she said that she was very young. Gimbel and Fox had been, quote unquote, very, very controlling. I felt like I was pushed on stage. I was singing other people's material, although the material was based on my private diaries. I felt victimized for most of my career. After that, Fox never spoke to her again after Revelation. So that's 97, and all of a sudden now 97, he probably rang up his friend Gimbel and said, this is what she's telling about us. And that's when they're like, oh no, Lori wasn't part of that. Now, the interesting thing, I'm just going to go back a little bit in time machine. Back in 76, remember I shared with you that Gimbel and Lieberman had an affair? Well, of course, that went sour. Gimbel had divorced his wife 3 years earlier, but Lieberman eventually stopped the sexual relationship she had with Gimbel because he had, she said, become emotionally abusive, controlling, and unfaithful, which unfaithful, I mean, you're having an affair with him. How do you expect him to be unfaithful? But the other, probably true, right? She asked to be freed of her contract. Gimbel and Fox directed their lawyers to demand $27,000 from Lieberman to pay expenses and demand another $250,000 of her future income. I mean, someone's angry that this gal's leaving, and probably had to do with something also of her breaking up the affair with him. So now backtrack to 1997. She talks to New York Times, talks not so nicely about Gimbel and Fox, and now they're like saying, oh no, she had nothing to do with it. I thought that was interesting. And they also demand in 2008 to have Don McLean not say it wasn't about him, when many years up until 1997, everyone was in agreement that it was about Don McLean singing a song. So here's Gimbel's contribution supports Lieberman's stance. It says here, Lori is only 20 and she really is a very private person. She told us about the strong experience she had listening to McLean. I had a notion this might make a good song, so the three of us discussed it. We talked it over several times, just as we did with the rest of the numbers we wrote for the album, and we all felt they had possibilities. Then it shows online here. Lieberman then adds, Norman, which is Gimbel, had a phrase he liked, killing me softly with his blues, but I didn't feel the word blues was quite what the effect was. Smart on her part. It wasn't contemporary enough somehow. We talked about it in a while. We finally decided on the word song instead. It seemed right that then we did it. So instead of killing me softly with his blues, killing me softly with his song, and then shortly, the title quickly is Killing Me Softly. Now, Fox published a memoir in 2010 called Killing Me Softly, My Life in Music, which contained nothing about the McLean performance inspiring the song. So remember, that's 2010, after 1997, when they had everyone, no longer friends, and downplayed Lieberman's role in the songwriting team. It said here, when Dan McIntosh of Song Facts asked Fox in 2010 about the McLean origin story, Fox said, I think it's called an urban legend. It really didn't happen that way. Boo. He's lying. You all know he is. He described Gimbel and himself writing the song, then playing it from Lieberman later, who was reminded of McLean singing. Fox said that somehow the words got changed around, so we wrote it based on Don McLean, whatever. And then Gimbel described in 2010, now he had been introduced to an Argentinian-born composer. I guess this composer's name is Lalo Schifrin, who did the Mission Impossible soundtrack, I guess, and began writing songs to a number of Schifrin's films. Both Gimbel and Schifrin made a suggestion to write a Broadway musical together, and Schifrin gave Gimbel an Argentinian novel called Hopscotch, I know I'm going down the rabbit hole, by Julio Cortázar to read as a possible idea. The book was never made into a musical, but in chapter 2, the narrator described himself in sitting in a bar listening to an American pianist friend kill us softly with some blues. So that's where he wrote the blues part. Gimbel put the phrase in his notebook and song idea for use of the future time. But I feel like my heart feels that Lori Lieberman was the heart of this song being made. And then Lieberman released a song in 2011 called Cup of Girl. I'm going to have to check it out, with lyrics about being used by someone who would rifle through her diary to write songs about her, who was being dishonest, promiscuous, and took advantage of her. Lieberman says that Gimbel contacted her after the song was published, sending angry emails. But Lieberman deleted the emails instead of responding to them, and then he died. Gimbel died in 2018, so there you go. In 2020, Lieberman said she was not seeking any money or official songwriting credit. She just wanted the world to know the correct origin of the song. And today, I am confirming that I agree with Lieberman that Killing Me Softly was originally written by her, and then, of course, they fleshed it out, and it was from a Don McLean song, Empty Chairs, when she saw him in November of 1971 at the Troubadour in LA. So there you go. So a little bit more about the Roberta Flack version. How did she get into this? So, of course, we know Lieberman was the first to record the song in late 71, released it in 72, didn't chart. Well, Helen Reddy of, Helen Reddy, I Am Woman, Hear Me Roar, who I didn't realize passed away in 2020, so sad to find that out. She was said to have been sent the song, but the demo, she said, sat on my turntable, so for the youngins, album turntable, for months without being played because I didn't like the title. She didn't like the title. Well, too bad for you, Helen Reddy. Someone else did. So Roberta Flack first heard the song on an airplane when the Lieberman version was featured on an in-flight audio program. So she scanned the list of like, who is this song? And she would recall, the title, of course, smacked me in the face. I immediately pulled out some scratch paper and made musical staves or notes. Then played the song at least 8 to 10 times, jotting down the melody that I heard. When I landed, I immediately called Quincy Jones, like as one does. Hey, Quincy, I'm just going to call you, at his house and asked him, how do we meet Charles Fox? Because, of course, he did the song part. 2 days later, I had the music. Shortly afterwards, Flack rehearsed the song with the band in her Tough Gong Studios in Kingston, Jamaica, but did not release it. She said she was unhappy with the background vocals on the various mixes she auditioned. Atlantic executive by the name of Tunk Aram assured her it would be a song no matter which mix was released. She refused, recalling later that she wanted to be satisfied with that record more than anything else. And with her perfection, that's why it did well. And then in 1972 of September, Flack was opening up for Quincy Jones at the LA Greek Theater. After performing her prepared encore song, Flack was advised by Quincy to sing an additional song. Flack later said, I had this new song I've been working on. And after I finished, the audience would not stop screaming. And that's when Quincy said, Ro, that's cute, Ro, instead of Roberta, don't sing that doggone song no more until you record it. He knew about how much that song was going to make her money. Then it was released officially in 1973 of January, and Flack's version spent a total of 5 non-consecutive weeks at #1 in February and March, more weeks than any other record in 1973. And then Billboard ranked it #3 song for 1973. And that's why my friend sang it last night, because my friend's 50th birthday, he was born in April of 1973. Charles Fox suggested that Flack's version was more successful than the original version of Lieberman's because her version, aka Flack's, was faster and gave it a strong backbeat that wasn't in the original. According to Flack, my classical background made it possible for me to try a number of things with the song's arrangement. I changed parts of the chord structure and chose to end on a major chord. The song wasn't written that way. The single appeared as the opening track of her Killing Me Softly album, issued in August of 1973. And then lo and behold, Flack won the 1973 Grammy Award for Record of the Year and Best Female Pop Vocal for the single, with Gimbel and Fox, of course, earning the Song of the Year Grammy, but no mention of Lieberman here. Then in 1996, a house remix of Flack's version went to #1 on the US dance chart. So many years later, 20 years later, it charts again, but in the dance chart. Then in 1999, Flack's version was inducted to the Grammy Hall of Fame. It ranked number 360 on the Rolling Stones list of the 500 greatest songs of all time, and number 82 on Billboard's greatest songs of all time. Now, remember I talked about the Fugees. Theirs came out in 1996, and they recorded their version with Lauryn Hill on lead vocals. Love it. Their version also became #1 hit in 20 countries. It won the Fugees the 1997 Grammy for Best R&B Performance by a Duo Group with Vocal, and it also helped them be more successful with their Fugees track. And then the 1970 recording by Roberta Flack was remixed in 96 by Jonathan Peters, with Flack adding some new vocal flourishes. The version, like I said earlier, topped the Hot Dance Club play chart. And then since then, Flack and the Fugees, I didn't know this, had performed the song together. The version by the Fugees and Roberta Flack was both placed on the 2021 revised list of Rolling Stone's 500 greatest songs of all time. So there you go, the backstory of how this song was made. Roberta Flack's version was a cover, not the original. I assumed she was the original. And how these two other individuals up until, 1996 or 97, like late 90s, decided, you know what, Lieberman, you never did that with 1997. No, it was just the two of us, and that's shady. I'm going to call it now, shady. So just wanted to let the world know that Lori Lieberman, you did it. So if you got great suggestions like this misheard song lyric, send them to us at our social media sites, Insta, Facebook, or Twitter, or you can just send me an email at misheard, that's MISSHEARD songs@gmail.com, and we might talk about your misheard song lyric and the backstory. Till then, keep singing those songs wrong. Bye.